Cemal, welcome. Hello, everyone. I've been online with the team hosting events with all these beautiful people that we can't see who are sitting online with us for the last 3 years. And it's been fantastic because we've had people join from all over the world. Some of you have probably joined some of those events, but to sit here and do it in person with you guys is even better. And to combine it with our crowd online. And 2 questions I want to get you all asking each other. And if you're with people at home, ask your partners or your pet the same question. Once Cemal and I finished our chat, is what are you excited about right now? What are you curious about? What's the thing that's giving you this buzz around your work? And then what do you need specifically help with? What's the challenge? What's the thing you'll keep coming back to, like, I've got to fix it? So what are you excited about? What's the challenge? I'd love you all to ask that question to each other afterwards, to skip the small talk and get some interesting stuff. But why don't I ask you first, Cemal? What are you excited about right now?
I think for me, it's going to be the obvious sorts of AI. We were just speaking earlier about the opportunity that it presents, and I messaged my friend last night. I said, "I think you wish you were 20 years younger," and he was like, "Yes, obviously." And I was like, "Just so we can make the most of like the AI revolution." And I've just been using it since Christmas Day. I ruined my Christmas parties with friends and family, and just been addicted to it. Just to see the opportunity that we have in the next, gone through the mobile revolution, now the AI revolution, to see how we can just turbocharge ideas, concepts, stress test everything. We're doing some really exciting, innovative projects with cruise ships, with techs, with intelligent expansion. And I'm just like, it's my number 2 at the moment. It's like telling me what I'm doing wrong, the opportunities ahead, how to develop the business better, how to think about risks and challenges. And yeah, if I was setting up a business now, again, from scratch, helping people who are homeless is of course super important, but for me, it would be definitely embedding AI into anything that I'm doing. I'm that kind of excited by it.
Okay, so Cemal's prompted us. We're not AIs, but it's prompted us that we should start using them more. That's our insight. We can go home now. We've got our top bit of advice. And then on the flip side, what's the biggest challenge that's on your mind at the moment?
I think it's the growth, speed, and the challenges that brings. So managing teams, people, and relationships on an international basis is incredibly difficult, and I didn't really perhaps expect it to be so challenging. Personal relationships, how you maintain a culture across from the UK into a whole different market, and then it kind of working in the same way. It's very difficult. And I'd say I'm a really bad manager, but I'm a great leader. And it's difficult to not have a good management structure when you're growing on a wide international basis. So it's the thing that I'm trying to be better at, trying to perhaps turn down my entrepreneurial tendency to focus a bit more on structure, on growing the team, having that culture, so we're not losing it from market to market.
Well, you're not the first to struggle with that transition from founder to CEO. Maybe there's some of you here in the room or listening online who've been through it as well. But at least you're not embarrassing yourself like certain tech entrepreneurs are in that role, Twitter at the moment. Before we go back to the beginning of the story, I heard this rumor that you've bought a cruise ship. Is it true?
We put a deposit on a cruise ship, and unfortunately, the cost of metals has meant that it's better for them to scrap the cruise ship than sell it to us. So because the cost of metals, because of inflation, people put their money into metals more readily. So we found a second one in Miami last week. So we're hoping to transfer the deposit onto that new one.
And everyone, there's a bit of confusion. I can see people going, "Hang on, this is a coffee business.
Yes.
What are you doing buying a cruise ship? What's going to?"
The Change piece isn't a coffee business. We're a company trying to reduce homelessness through coffee, and for us, it's just a mechanism to be able to do that. So the cruise ship is really about trying to find a way to provide en masse housing to people. So the one that we had secured previously offered 413 bedrooms, but we use it as a foyer. So it provides a whole array of wraparound services to people who are homeless and rough sleeping, from mental health services, triage, to drug rehabilitation. And then within a period of 9 to 12 months, they then rebound back into society. We're doing it in partnership with the Mayor of London. And it's essentially a kind of a city where we're able to, on the back of providing housing, provide a whole array of services that then supports that person back into society a lot quicker. But then it comes back to challenges around power, substations, carbon footprint, a whole range of things we're now trying to iron out at the moment. But it's super exciting to be able to see how that can replicate into other ports like LA, Miami, etc. And there.
I don't think you're leaving your entrepreneurial part of you behind just yet, by the sounds of that story.
I said, dialing it down.
Dialing it down a bit. So let's, talking of transport, let's go back to the start of this journey. So for those of you that don't know the story, you do. It's such an amazing one to hear in person. You were on another mode of transport, a bus, long bus journey, where something happened. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so a bit before the bus, so I'm a recovering commodity broker. I'm trying to get up to kind of parity before it's time to go to heaven, and I was having a bit of a midlife crisis at the age of 29, and my partner was traveling in different countries, and I was joining her in different stops. And one of those was in Vietnam. We were on this 18-hour bus journey going up from Ho Chi Minh City up to the center of Vietnam on this kind of these sleeper buses. And there was one seat that was left next to me, and this American traveler jumped onto the bus. I pretended to be asleep, to the British thing of being reserved and keep myself to myself. He was full of beans, typical American, full of energy. Anyway, we got chatting, and he said, if you're not happy with your job and your life, you should do the rocking chair test. So that's to imagine sitting in your rocking chair at the age of 90, looking back on your life, thinking what you achieved, what's your legacy on the world, how are your children going to remember you, and what's this whole life thing being about. And I remember thinking that if I was depressed before that, I was definitely depressed at that point. I was like, it got me thinking, if that bus crashed there and then, who had to care? Like, my parents, of course, my bank manager, insurance broker, fill out a few forms, and that's it. Life's over. Like, I've contributed zero to the world that we've lived in and just taken and gone on the march of the money train, trying to build success from a financial scale. And that was my value system. My parents were refugees. That was my real value system about just building financial security. And then a few weeks later, I went to this silent tea house in a town called Hoi An, a really beautiful town in Vietnam. And there was these ladies who set up this silent tea house, where it's the only rule in this tea house was that you had to be silent, and it was full of tourists. And you'd order your sign language through stamps or your tea through sign language. Sorry, and then it just blew me away. For the first time in 29 years, I realized you could do business and good at the same time, which kind of sounds alien now, but to me at the time it was like a revelation. I thought I struck gold with this concept. And I left and I said I'm going to set up a silent tea house in Clapham in London, and very soon realized I don't like tea. I hate Clapham. I don't like silence. Like, my Virgin Money would not be giving me any money to start up this business. But I used to rent my properties to people who were councils who then sublet to people who are homeless. And I realized that you can do the housing part quite straightforward, but it's how do you make it sustainable so people aren't dependent on the government, they're not dependent on benefits, on welfare, but they're tackling the problem themselves through their own endeavors, through jobs. And that's empowering. They've got dignity, they've got self-worth, confidence. So the connection into coffee through tea was an obvious one. And that was 24th of April 2013. So nearly 10 years ago. I had the idea.
So branded into your diary forever.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about the first stage. So you had the big idea and the vision. How did you get to version 1 of Change, please?
Yeah, so it's the most difficult thing just at the start of it to get moving. And for me, the key was to set up an MVP, which is a viable product, just to prove the concept works. You've got this crazy idea of the most dangerous thing in the entrepreneurial world, I think, is people telling you if it was a good idea, then someone else would have done it. And it's just nonsense, because it just, they might not have been brave to do it. You might have thought of it in a different way. And we've thought of so many incredible ideas that no one's done before. And it's just so exciting to be able to just forget the naysaying and start doing it. So for us, it was about proving that it works and people do sustainably come out of homelessness through jobs, through employment, so through housing. And then that program does work. And then it's a case of scaling. So things like raising finance, marketing, building a brand, all the kind of traditional things. And I went to the School of Social Entrepreneurs, which used to be in Tudor Street. They might have moved For anyone who's looking to set up a social business, they're an incredible organisation who helps you all the way through the process, and you even receive £5,000 or £10,000 worth of grant funding. That was after my time, and it gets you on the way, but it gives you all the knowledge that you need to, because it's difficult enough setting up a traditional startup, let alone a social startup or an environmentally focused startup. So having that support of someone who's done it, giving you that guidance is absolutely vital. And also, forgot most importantly, the support from Virgin Startup. Like it's, and I'm not just saying that because it's here. I've done quite a few podcasts, and I'm always mentioning Virgin Startup, Andy, just in case you're listening. So it for me is like vital to have a mentor in place. And I've since told a lot of friends, like even if you're not going to take the money from Virgin Startup, you don't need the money, just take a £500 or £1,000 loan and get a mentor. I don't know if that's frowned upon, but it's a lot of my friends have done that, and it's really helped. And that person who's there holding your hand, coaching you through that journey is absolutely invaluable to be able to do that. So yeah, the money is super valuable. We took a £25,000 loan out to start up the first, to buy the first coffee vans. And we never missed a payment, paid it back in 5 years. And the mentor support was just, yeah, great, because it gives you the guidance and the reassuring, the confirmation that you're doing the right thing, but also stress testing your idea on the business model canvas to get the money in the first place was probably the hardest thing I've done in the last 7 years, to really make sure everything that we potentially would need in terms of what's our USP, who's going to buy our product, all the things we take for granted now. I was thinking that for the first time when trying to apply for this money. So it was invaluable to kind of get the money, B, stress test the idea, and get a mentor. And that was a launch pad we needed to be able to grow. And we had a huge amount of support from Virgin Group afterwards. So we supply into Virgin Atlantic, into Virgin Trains, now Avanti, flagship into the Battleship building historically. So all of that support we've had has been from that Virgin startup phase we were in.
Doing Richard's work for him, covering almost all the bases. It's brilliant. And tell us a little bit about, because that explaining how you got it going and doing it, it's reminded me of the difference between a founder and an investor or a loaner. A founder's all about the vision. Like, we're all excited, we've got the idea, we want to go out and do it. You have that. And then the person who's trying to help you from a financial point of view, whether it's a loan or an investment, it's all about how do you take risk out of this, and how have you managed that tension as you grew the business between wanting to sell the dream and the vision and the impact that Change Please could have and now has versus those that said, well, hold on, there's not enough profit in this, or how are you going to, you're never going to solve that problem, it's too tractable. Have you managed that tension?
Yeah, there's a tendency when starting up an organization to try and keep it within yourself, so nobody else steals your idea, or you get people to sign NDAs, and it's just nonsense. My preference is to tell as many people as possible, because the amount of times I've heard a negative criticism that I've then turned into an opportunity that I've thought about, it's just it's the most important thing. And I give people permission to give me criticism, or give our business criticism, and just say, what one thing would you change about that idea? How would you improve it? What would you? And it's so invaluable to then keep iterating every single time someone. We're building this amazing tech product, and we were with the mayor of Denver last week, and they were just criticizing the model and how it works, and they were saying it's going to be enabling people who are homeless, and rather than lifting them off.
These are the QR codes that people can use.
Yes.
To tell us a little bit about how it works, because it's really innovative.
Yeah, so we're basically launching a QR code product where people homeless hold up a QR code on the streets, and you can scan it and find out firstly who they are, what their background is, how they became homeless. But you can also support them with a donation, which they can then redeem in a Sainsbury's, a Tesco's, a Waitrose, a whole range of other partners that we've signed up. And that person who's homeless will then receive a QR code by SMS, or kind of alphanumeric code, which they then take into a store, into a Waitrose or Sainsbury's. They have it scanned, and they can use it to buy anything apart from alcohol. So that worry around, I want to give that person some money, but they might spend on drugs and alcohol is gone immediately. We can also provide housing, crowdsourced by people, or accommodations in partnerships with Booking.com and Expedia, where you can donate for that person to have accommodation for the evening, and that way you're helping them off the streets. But we can also support with work training, requalifying people to get back into the workplace through donations, etc. So, and part of the issues were that the mayor, for example, was saying, the vouchers are enabling people to stay out on the streets and making it more comfortable for people, which is a very valid point. My reply was, we've got access now to 3,500 people in Denver who are homeless by SMS. So when you have programs that you then want to contact those people about, we can do that in one message out to all the people. So provide housing, and if they've got a new program that they want to get out to all the people, it's almost impossible to contact those individuals. So so that gave me the opportunity to kind of find a new USP of our service by just hearing that criticism back.
That's a fantastic mindset to sustain. And am I right in saying that 5% of rough sleepers in the UK have now been supported through Change, Please?
Yeah, so we per year. So that number's growing. I mean, since COVID, it's a massive jump. We went from 6,700 rough sleepers to nearly 11,000. We've now got 288,000 people who are homeless across the UK. So 5% of rough sleepers is a fraction of the real problem that's out there. So it's good, but it's a tiny number. The things that we're doing on the buses with the we've converted these double-decker buses to go out on the streets to provide vital services for people. So things like showers, haircuts, clothes washing, access to a doctor. We've got a state of dentists on board as well, and that's sponsored by companies like by Colgate, by HBT. We're launching it in Paris, in New York. So it then gives us new access to people to be able to then support them into our barista programs, to then lift them off the street. And that's now taking that number into the thousands per year. We expected to see 6 people per day. We're seeing nearly 30 in the queue running outside the buses before we even get there. It's that kind of high in demand at the moment. So yeah, it's a way of interacting with people, building up trust with people that who have potentially lost hope in society. And then after they've built up that trust, we then support them into onward employment for the people that we feel might be ready to make that step.
And you seem very clear about, you are very clear about the mission of Change, Please. Have you explored further up the problem chain where what prevents people from becoming rough sleepers, and is that something you've explored as an organisation?
Yeah, so it's different in each country. So in the UK, pre-COVID, you had to drop through quite a few filters to get to that point before you became unsheltered or a rough sleeper. Now it's very easy. Like, there's pre-COVID, there was 16.5 million people in the UK who had less than £350 in their bank account. That number's now 21 million. So it really isn't difficult to be in financial poverty and therefore become homeless as a consequence. In the US, in other countries like France, for example, they don't have as much of that safety net, especially in the US, or the healthcare system. I met a lady last week actually in Charlotte who said that the ambulance bill for her son to get to hospital was $1,800. And if you're, let's say, have the equivalent of £350 in your bank account, then how are you going to pay for that? You go straight into a potential homeless situation if you don't have family to support you. So it's so easy to get into that situation. And why our model works so well in the US, especially, is because we can rebound quickly. We can rebound people so quickly back into employment and work because they're not as vulnerable as people who might be homeless for 4 or 5 years. So it's really adapting the model for each market.
And proving that innovation can play a big part in solving these issues. Like, I mean, I've been following Beam as well. Training, crowdfunding to train people back off the streets has been fantastic. Something it seems like you're brilliant at, and you just shared a few examples, is partnerships. Forming partnerships to scale your impact and business. A lot of us here are always like, oh yeah, how do you convince someone to, big corporate brands to say, we're going to give you our money, our resources, our people, our marketing to come on board with your mission?
Yeah, I think firstly it's understanding what that company's values are, what they're looking for, what their interests are from in our case, an impact offer, whether it's environmental or social. But what I always say is it's not the company that's important, it's the person that you find, and that person being the champion. And even that person that could potentially be your champion, you might call them at 8:30 for the first time just before they've had their coffee, and then an hour later, they're a completely different person after they've had their coffee, Change Peace Coffee, and they react completely differently to your idea, your proposition, your partnership, and so not getting kind of put down or thinking that the company itself is against your idea. That's one individual within that huge organization, and they're not representative of the whole. If you really believe and you can see that partnership working in some way, and you trust that connection on how it potentially could work, then work your way through people to get to a point where you deliver it. So yeah, it's not that person doesn't represent the whole company.
So be persistent.
Be persistent and find the right person, and choose the right time to call them. Find out if they're drinking coffee, perhaps.
We're going to come to some questions, by the way, in a few minutes, both here and online. So have a think about what you want to ask Cemal. Moonshots versus staying alive. You said up front, I'm trying to be more of a business manager as you grow versus trying loads of different things. How are you doing that? And are you still trying? Obviously, the boat is one example. Are you still allowing yourself to be an entrepreneur sometimes?
Yeah, it's that for the last 6 years, kind of have that internal question of, should you change your spots, or should you learn new skill sets, or should you double down on the skill sets that you have? And my personal thought is a little bit of both, but 80% just double down on the skill sets that you have. You're not necessarily going to change who you are. The parts that you're not great at, the bigger you grow as an organization, those parts are going to be more revealed, and therefore getting people in who can fill those parts and can do it much better than you is absolutely the right strategy. But at the beginning, you have to kind of do everything as you're growing and as you're starting up. But just really focus, understand your self-audit, and understand what you're good at, what you're bad at, and just really focus down, double down on the things that you are good at, and that would help you turbocharge.
Talking things you're good at, launching new ideas. What is Serious Tissues?
So Serious Tissues is I think any good entrepreneur would have set up a toilet paper business during coronavirus. Or any crazy entrepreneur who's and yeah, we toilet paper accounts for 15% of the world's deforestation. It's an ecological disaster. Unless you live in the UAE and you use other alternatives, there isn't really an alternative. And we cut down 27,000 trees a day just for toilet paper. That's 10 million trees a year. So the problem is really, really, really bad. And so we launched Serious Tissues because we've got serious issues. And yeah, we're doing kind of year 5 revenue in the first 18 months, pretty much all through Instagram sales. It's just insane. Like, we never expected that. And then the corporate market as well. So there's other alternatives like bamboo, which you might have seen quite a lot. Bamboo, unfortunately, is grown in China and shipped to the UK, so the carbon footprint isn't great. So we collect waste paper from corporate offices, and we then convert that into parent and real, recycle it, and then sell the paper back to them for market. It's been going great.
That's brilliant. Do you have a book with like a bunch of ideas? And if you do, like, how do you decide? Because obviously Change, Please, Serious Tissue, I know a bunch of other businesses as well. How do you decide what to give a go?
I think your gut instinct to start with. This was pre-25th of December. It was my gut instinct, speaking to people, sharing ideas, seeing their reaction, and speaking to a few people that could be potential partners and seeing how they react. Since the 25th of December, it's been ChatGPT all the way. I know I mentioned AI in the past, but at the beginning, but for me, it really is a stress testing idea, looking at.
It's an example of how you're using it.
So we're building a new, how should I say this? A new investment platform to help other social businesses and environmentally focused businesses to raise money. Change Business is not for profit, but we've always been offered the opportunity of equity investments. We've been able to take it. So we have a great black book of potential investors that we've never tapped into. And the whole focus on ESG, on investments in social and environmental investments is a great opportunity. So we're essentially building this platform which allows us to create state-of-the-art reports in partnership with Oxford University and other partners. And we've been struggling about how we do our sub-streams on if you're in a tech business or in a healthcare business, what based on your stage of funding, whether you're seed up to IPO, what type of questions you get to kind of get the potential investors to answer those questions. Within 2 hours, I built it out. It was just insane. Like we would have had to have paid tens of thousands to like business consultants to do that for us, and it did it. We've stress tested it, and we've given that into the kind of first live. So it's just as simple as that. But then going back to the creature, it's what are the risks? What's the potential reaction by residents who might live locally? And it's just giving you all those ideas up front that you wouldn't have thought about, which you then keep prompting and probing.
That's the thing of knocking down the barriers.
Yeah.
So final question, then we'll open it up. What's your work day look like typically?
It's being woken up by my 4-year-old and probably kicked in the head if I'm not waking up quick enough. And then I'm one of those people that perhaps prefer virtual team meetings. Then it's just for me far more efficient. So starting at kind of 8:30 and meeting, speaking to our teams around different markets, and telling me to stop thinking about potential ideas when I'm getting into them. So it's just back to back change, 85% change, please, and then I give myself 15-20% on the other projects as well.
And of that time that you're giving those two businesses, how much of it is out there, like you're doing tonight, and how much is it with your team in person? Is it split down the middle?
No, I think it's again 85-90% we're a team. And that's why limiting as many kind of out there things as possible, I think, is really important.
We're lucky then tonight. We have your attention. Thanks so much, Cemal, for sharing all of that. I'll take a couple of questions in here. Here we go. Please say your name and tell us whatever you want to do.
Thank you so much. My name is Sharina, and I run a property management business and also a podcast show called Start Now, so a little plug. I interview entrepreneurs about their businesses. I'm really interested to know, going back to the rocking chair analogy, when you sat and you thought about what the goal that you wanted to get to, have you got there yet, or does the goalpost keep moving as you're doing all these amazing things?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think there's a great TED talk by someone called Sean Aker on positive psychology, and it's all about looking at your lens and being happy now, if that makes sense. And I think that also relates to where you see success. And what I regret doing is starting any of these businesses and not measuring my barometer for success at an early stage. So then you know where you've achieved it when you get to that point. It's always going to be a lot lower where you actually get to. So for me, that is so important. Understand your real want and projection of the organization, and when you get to that point, you know it's you. And I think it does keep moving. Like, it definitely does. Like, it's not static, but it's understanding the milestones. So you keep achieving those and appreciating those for yourself and your team. Otherwise, just see so much burnout historically in our teams, because you're not. As I said, I'm a bad manager, but you're not setting those small milestones for people to feel like we're achieving something. It's just instant, never ending. That's changed now, by the way. We've got better mental health in the workplace. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's still don't think I've achieved it. I wouldn't if today was my rocking chair moment. It would be kind of like wish I had wish I did a lot more. But yeah, I'm a better path than I was historically. Yeah.
Startups start now.
Who's next? The mic. Let us know who you are.
Hi, my name is Mohsin Rabjani from an organisation called Changeorg.org.uk, and we are in a similar space to yourself with the prevention of homelessness using AI and machine learning as an aggregating tool to bring those resources to the surface rather than people looking for them because it's impossible. What I really would like to learn from you, because I see you as a mentor, is And what would you change as a business model when you originally thought of the concept you are today? What pivots would you have taken, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I think, and so the I think not getting too emotionally involved in the people that we're supporting at an early stage, and having better boundaries, sorry. And we had people sleeping in my living room, in a when we first was really not healthy in a relationship with my partner, but then also um, understanding the importance of mental health therapy in that journey. So we were started providing jobs. I thought was the kind of everything you need, and that was the answer. And then you realise that you need to provide housing as well, so we start providing housing. And then you start seeing after 3 months that person going into a negative spiral. And the thing that really unlocks everything else is the mental health therapy support. So whether you're a military veteran, victim of domestic abuse, sexual abuse, you're bereavement, whatever the underlying trauma that person's facing at the start of it, and it kind of reverses that spiral. So and unlocks everything else. So that is a huge hindsight that I wish I knew at the time. But again, if we had known that we didn't have the resources that early stage to employ psychologists or counsellors in the team, so I think it's all part of the process. But that's what I would have done, and perhaps started in Paris actually instead of that's another story. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot indeed. My name is George. I'm a mentor with the program. I just wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier, what kind of advice would you give to mentors on the program? What is it that you felt helped you mostly in your beginning of your journey?
Yeah, so mentors are so important. What's good and bad about being in the social enterprise space is corporate organizations, and I'm not putting Virgin Startup in this, but large corporates, banks, law firms, love providing mentors as part of a journey. At one point, I had 19 mentors, and I spent most of my day managing them. It became really difficult. And there's a mix of reasons, actually. One is their fluent knowledge, having someone supporting you. But what was one of my biggest learnings, actually, with all those mentors, I sat there and I sent a exactly the same message to all 19 people. I was really struggling with this kind of, I can't remember what it was, philosophical deep question about the direction of our organization. No, actually, I think it was more transactional than that. It was a bit of a, and I sent it out to the whole group, and I probably got 15 different responses from people, like completely conflicting, different answers. And I really highly respect those people that I was mentoring. So what I took from that was the self-confidence to say that even these people that I really trust don't have the exact answer. And there's so many margin calls, so many 50-50s. There isn't really the wrong answer. It's just the direction that you choose to go in. So it's taking somebody's advice, listening, and then seeing how that matches your values. But I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And I read that through having that group of people.
Excellent. Keep going over here. Come online.
Yes, thank you so much. So my name is Shiv. I'm the founder of 3R0 Waste, building a world without waste, mainly into waste management. So my question is, specifically in a social enterprise, there would be times of low, and how in the span of 10 years, how many times you had that moment, and how did you bounce back to a successful thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, the most important thing, and I don't want to quote Simon Sinek, but really understanding the real reason why you're doing something, and understanding and embedding that why into the roots of your being, because on a daily basis, to answer your question, probably 3 or 4 times a day, you get those negative knockbacks, and it's just that why and that strength, those roots is what keeps you going. So really understanding what is the real reason you want to do it is I feel super passionate about. I don't think it's enough anymore to say I see a bit of a USP. You really have to believe in what you're doing to your core, because you are going to get many knockbacks. So first is understanding that. Secondly is being able to be critical with yourself and other people to see if back is something which is recoverable. And going back to the point I mentioned earlier around giving people permission to give you negatives and constructive criticism, for me that's so important because you get in the mindset of always developing, always growing, always shifting, and fluid, as opposed to being completely fixed in your position. And when you are knocked over, it's difficult to get up. That fluidity in your mind thinking is really, really important. But believing in your end goal enough is for me the ultimate answer to that, because if you really believe in the direction that you want to go in, then you know that's the thing that keeps you driving forward. I can't give you a direct answer to what the what's making somebody feel like that, but for me, it's really understanding the end point and believing in that so much that you just keep fighting through.
Simon is a friend of ours, and the other thing I was going to point is in the moment where you get the setback. Have you got a picture on the wall? Have you got a post-it note? Well, what is it that reminds you of your why, or is it just very much an automatic response?
It's really emotional. It's not ego. It's sorry. Yeah, there's no picture, there's no aid. It's just that belief in and trusting that feeling inside. I don't have a more romantic answer than that, but it really, for me, it's about before I start putting that idea out there, I really need to understand it and believe, and that gives me the strength to keep pushing it through.
I also get the sense with you and many entrepreneurs that I've been lucky to talk to that it's pleasure is the wrong word, but there's this sort of like when you get a setback, it's like, okay, here we go, and there's a little bit of a we're gonna take this on and we're gonna make it work.
Yeah, not in an ego perspective, not trying to prove someone wrong for the sake of proving them wrong, but it's the overcoming the challenge, which is more exciting, and that leads to the wider entrepreneurial feeling about seeing challenges and trying to find those solutions, and it then goes from the macro to the micro of that individual problem that leads to the setback. So
great, thanks for sharing that. Okay, a couple more questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alex. I'm the founder of Travel Sisters. We aim to make female travel safer. And you mentioned that Change Please is not for profit, and it's always, as you were saying at the beginning earlier as well, with business can be done for profit and also for good. You make the decision of what I guess would be the criteria on the decision. Should this be non-profit, or can I make profit, or it's a difficult space.
Yeah, it is, and it's a great question, and I think it goes back to the reason I was doing it in the first place. I didn't want people to think that I was making money on the back of people who are falling homeless, and also the whole juxtaposition of being a commodity and then going into the homeless space. And I said, well, I want to set up a not-for-profit. So, but in the last 6-7 years, I don't think anybody actually cares. They look at the output and they look at the outcome, of what you're generating. And so no one, and especially in the US, I don't think it's really a consideration for people. So I think in hindsight, if we weren't not-for-profit, we probably would have grown a lot quicker because we could have raised equity investment and opened more retail sites and had more money to grow. So if you look at the quantum impact of being not-for-profit and reinvesting your profits that you generate compared to being, let's say, 50% for profit and then raising equity and growing faster, where's the impact to society? It's a philosophical question. Maybe I should ask ChatGPT. But it's so yeah. Going back, I probably wouldn't have been for profit. Yeah.
Travel Sisters. .co. Fantastic. Joe, online, I've got a question.
Cemal, there's a guy watching from Brazil, and he's making sure that he's going to be able to rewatch it later because you talk so quickly, and everything you say is so insightful.
Yeah. The question.
So the question, there was one specific question about working with councils and how to navigate working with local
councils. How to navigate in Brazil. it's relationship based. It's understanding your understanding your. So interesting. It's exactly what we're dealing with at the moment, and it's we've probably missed out on about 6 to 7 million a year of income through not working with councils, and it's something that we're really trying to focus on at the moment. I think I know who asked that question. Yeah, so what we're learning is the relationships, understanding your value to the council and your return of investment if they give you money instead of somebody else, and understanding every council will have a different measurement, a different KPI. So really understanding what they're looking for and speaking to the right people, the commissioners. It's difficult, but when you get into the right people and you build up a track record, supposedly it's a great opportunity thereafter.
Another question, but from me. What makes the UK a good place to start a business in 2023?
Well, I'll answer that from a social perspective. So we've had delegations from the royal family of the UAE come to see what we're doing, see other social businesses and what they're doing. We've had Deputy Prime Minister of Thailand come to the UK to see social enterprises. We are, as a country, really, we're seen as the kind of the gold standard of social business. And therefore, there's a lot of support. There's a lot of understanding. In the US, as an example, in other countries like Australia, there isn't that kind of awareness. You're either a for-profit business or you're a charity. There isn't that kind of middle space for social enterprise. So I think that awareness and that ecosystem that organisations like Social Enterprise UK and SSE have built have been absolutely phenomenal to set up a social business. In terms of a business more generally, again, it's organisations like Virgin Startup, it's government putting money behind accelerator programs. It's really the kind of the mentality of entrepreneurialism that is I think installed within people, and that's from people like Richard Branson and from programs like then, etc. We have that now as part of our DNA, I think. So I think it creates a perfect ecosystem to have that support. And feel like you're being driven. And we don't see that in some other countries. There's programs there, but there isn't that same entrepreneurial drive that I see in the UK.
Absolutely, and bringing that confidence as well, because the danger is, of course, as we just follow the news, and this country's down on itself for some understandable reasons, but the entrepreneurship is fantastic, and you're leading that. Just before we wrap up, how many coffees a day, Cemal?
I have no idea. It's do I have myself or do we?
Yeah, no.
Oh
God, you could answer that.
I was thinking like how many. I was trying to work with the maths in my head. I don't drink any coffee after 10 o'clock, so I can't sleep. But before 10, I have about 3.
3 coffees.
Yeah.
Okay. And what percentage of the business is that?
Yeah.
not much.
As a coefficient of.
Yeah. If we want to buy Change, please, where can we get it?
You can buy it from Tesco, Sainsbury's, Amazon, and on our website.
Fantastic. And Serious Tissues?
Yeah, serioustissues.com and in Ocado as well. And it will also be soon you'll see adverts on Sky. We won £1 million. We won Sky's Earthshot prize. So £1 million in funding from Sky. So it should put adverts across their network.
Wonderful. We're going to say goodbye and thank you to our online audience. Thanks for joining us tonight. Connect with us, share your insights from the conversation with Cemal, whichever platform you're on. Thanks for joining us. And for those of you who are here in person, we're now going to open the bottles of rum and we are going to have a Q&A with each other. So we've got the next half hour together. We'd love you to spend some time connecting with each other. Remember the 2 questions that I put Cemal on the spot up front with, which is what are you excited about, curious about? You can't all say chat GPT. Or if you are, tell us what you're doing there that's interesting. Like I've built a whole new strategy in an hour that would have taken me months. And also what your challenge is. How can I help you with what you're doing? And Chloe is at the back there. Give us a wave, Chloe. Chloe is making movies. If you would like to go and say hi to Chloe at some point, just a quick chat on camera. Tell us what you thought about the session tonight, but also share what you're working on. And Virgin Startup and the Virgin Group are very good at telling stories to big audiences. So I recommend doing that. You never know what might happen. You may be here in the future. Cemal, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.